Continuing on this month's podcast series, The Perception of Powerlessness. I have to stay for the kids. Welcome back to the Secure Husband Podcast. Bruce Abbott, certified professional coach and founder of SecureHusband.com. This is probably the number one reason that I hear from men of why they stick it out, why they stay in dysfunctional marriages, why they feel like they have no power and no say. They stay stuck, not necessarily for the money, not really even the fear of being alone. It's the kids. I can't leave. It would destroy them. I have to keep this marriage going for them. And on the surface, it sounds sacrificial. It sounds like you're being a good dad, but you're hurting. You're lonely. You're in pain. Am I saying that you have to leave your marriage to get peace, to get happiness? Not necessarily, but I am going to talk about this perception of powerlessness when it comes to children. It's not about blowing up your family. It is about helping you see clearly so that whatever decision that you make comes from strength and not fear. Every guy that I talk to that's in this situation has some version of, if I leave, the kids will suffer. If I disrupt the family, if I disrupt the home, it's going to mess them up. They need both parents under one roof. And a lot of guys that I talk to say, I grew up as a child of divorce. But underneath this is something deeper. It's at your core, you're saying, I would rather suffer than let my kids suffer. That's powerful. That's love. That is unconditional love for your kids. But it can also become a trap because what we don't question is what are they experiencing right now? Now, in a lot of guys that I talk to, their marriage is on the surface okay. What people see from the outside looks okay. It looks like a normal marriage. And oftentimes our kids, they don't see fighting. They don't see arguing, because remember, we got both partners that are conflict avoidant. What they're living in this situation is not necessarily volatile or toxic, although that is certainly the situation in some of the guys that I work with. But they're also not seeing warmth. They're not seeing compassion. They're not seeing two people that love each other and show that love to each other. So we look at what is it that they're experiencing in the marriage. Kids, they can pick up on things. It's amazing. They feel tension. They feel distance. They can feel it because what you're going through right now as an adult is those childhood wounds that you felt when you were young. Remember, that body keeps that score. So when you felt dad anxious and mom withdrawn, or whatever your circumstance was when you grew up that made you maybe not feel safe, emotionally safe in the house or physically safe, they feel that too. They feel your anxiety. They feel your wife's distance and withdraw. You don't necessarily have to argue and fight in front of them for them to pick up on stuff. They pick up on energy. And the truth is they're learning what a relationship looks like from your relationship. They're watching how a man treats himself. They're watching him exhibit his self-worth. They're watching how a man is treated. They're watching what is tolerated by both people in the relationship and maybe what's avoided, the unspoken. If you're staying, but you are anxious, shut down, resentful, hypervigilant, walking on eggshells, what are they learning? And I'll tell you right now, you won't get a definite, straight answer from listening to this podcast because for every man and situation, there's nuances, it's different. You have to make that choice. But the idea of staying for the kids in a dynamic where your needs are not expressed and boundaries may be unclear, your emotional state depends on her, codependency, I'm okay only if you're okay. If you're not okay, I'm not okay. And you don't have a voice, you're modeling something. You're modeling to your kids self-abandonment. And if I sit down with you and say, hey, do you want to teach your kids self-abandonment? You're like, hell no. But kids don't learn from what you say. They learn from what they experience. They learn from what you live, what you show. So your son may grow up thinking this is what a man does. He suppresses, he tolerates, he stays quiet. I've talked to several guys who, when they talk about their situation and how their wife treats them, and when I start digging around a little bit, finding out kind of about her upbringing, in addition to your upbringing, a lot of times you will see the mother of your wife married to somebody who is completely shut down, completely abandoned. And when we talk about power in the relationship, there's a lot of times I'll talk to guys and they'll be like, oh my gosh, my mother-in-law just absolutely steamrollers my father-in-law. We see that growing up. Imago theory, we find people that are exact same as our upbringing, and we bring all those childhood wounds into adulthood. And then what happens is we get into a marriage and we have children, and then our children are watching us. Now, this goes both ways. It goes for both sons and daughters. But when I'm talking to men, again, he's going to grow up thinking that this is just what you do as a husband. You know, your daughter may grow up thinking this is what a relationship feels like. One person pulls away, the other chases. They may not be able to explain all of this, but they can feel it. And it's not until later on in adulthood that they're able to start to realize, oh, that's right. Growing up, I saw this, I saw that. I don't remember ever seeing my parents give affection. I'm not saying this to shame you in these situations, because we're men. And we will do everything for our children. We will take a bullet for them. We will do anything to protect our kids. So this is not to shame or guilt or blame. I just want to show this to you so that you can see it. Because once you see it, you have a choice. Remember, awareness is that first step in the secure husband process. So let's take a step back. What's happening inside of you? Remember, this is your body. When you think about leaving, your nervous system fires up. Fear, panic. I would get the tightness right in my chest. And in your mind are the questions that we ask. What if I regret this? What if I ruin their lives? What if they never speak to me ever again? So what do? Do you stay? If you do, maybe it's not necessarily because it's the best choice. It's because it felt safer in your body. Remember your nervous system. It's not looking out for you in terms of what's the healthiest option. Your nervous system is, I feel threat and I'm going to respond. And that's important, because if you don't understand that, you're going to keep making decisions from fear, calling it responsibility, calling it being a good parent. And again, I'm not saying that you have to end the relationship. This podcast is filled with ways to become more secure and help bring two people together. You are not in the powerless situation that you believe you're in. Because I get it. In some of the worst places in my marriage, I thought, you know what, I'll deal with whatever I have to deal with, but I cannot do that to my kids. And I was looking at it from a black and white perspective. Now, I did a lot of work, and what this entire podcast is all about is a lot of the work for you to become a more secure man, and that can help your relationship, and I continue to encourage that. So I'm not saying in this podcast, oh, he's saying it's okay to leave. Don't misunderstand that. I'm just saying, let me also take note of what the kids are experiencing right now, and what I am experiencing right now, what brings me peace, and what is healthy. It could be healthy to continue to do this work, self-work. It may also be, I always say, this is not a guarantee that this will save your marriage. But what it may do is bring clarity on whether or not this relationship has a future. Once you get that clarity, you may get to a point where you say, okay, yeah, the kids, they're experiencing this. They probably feel the tension. They probably see the shutdown. They probably see her distance. They probably see the dynamic. And again, you're asking yourself, is that the relationship that I want to model for them? Is that the type of relationship I want them, my children, to have? That's powerful when you stop and think about that. do I want my kids to have the same relationship that I have right now? Because now you're coming at this from, the protector mode, and you're thinking, okay, am I protecting them from going through a divorce, or am I protecting them from potentially having their own marital issues later? So you're thinking about a lot of stuff, but you're also thinking about what are they learning inside the marriage? Now, again, because I get so many people that say, you are so pro-divorce. I am not pro-divorce. If you've heard me say it, I am anti-self-abandonment. I am pro-peace. Every person deserves to be at peace in their marriage, male or female. So this is about peace. If you do the work for yourself, overcoming self-abandonment, that shifts the dynamic. And then if the marriage improves from that, then awesome. If you do the work, you overcome the self-abandonment and you start to realize this relationship does not have a future. Because I don't want you to go straight from I'm unhappy to I should leave. I listened to the podcast on the kids with Bruce and sounds like I'm okay to leave. I'm never going to specifically say that, but I am going to have you just be aware of all this. So when you sit there and go, should I leave? Make sure that this is coming from a grounded sense of self-worth, integrity, not self-abandonment. If there were boundaries that needed to be established, you make sure that those boundaries have been established, not threats, not ultimatums, just statements of what is acceptable to you. Don't go straight to blowing up the relationship if you have not communicated what is acceptable to you, what you're available for and not available for. This is where it gets really uncomfortable. The whole starting to set boundaries thing can be a whole new thing for a lot of guys. And it may not land well, and she may resist. She may get upset. She might even withdraw even more, but the boundaries will eventually do one of the two things. Brings the relationship back into balance, or brings clarity of the future. But in everything that you do, no matter what you've done in the past to avoid discomfort or keep the peace, you're either going to go back into self-abandonment or you're going to move forward from integrity and self-respect. So if you're moving forward with integrity and self-respect and the marriage is improving, okay. If you're now moving out of self-abandonment and into self-respect and the marriage gets worse, if you look at it through this lens of your kids, and you have to do this while you're regulating, you have to do this while you're soothing your nervous system, noticing what's happening in your body, you're staying present, you're not reacting, you're not saying to yourself that I can't deal with this, you're grounded. You're reminding yourself, I can handle this. You're not controlling, you're not chasing, you're grounded. When you're doing all of this stuff, you got to really give it some time to see where the marriage goes. If you give it that time and you feel that you're no longer self-abandoning, you feel more secure, it is still completely one-sided. Nothing has changed. Now you have to address that question again. What if I do all of this and she still refuses to engage, refuses to meet you halfway, refuses to work on the relationship? What am I willing to live with instead of how can I fix this? What am I willing to live with? Because that's a different question. And that's a much harder question because now you're not reacting to her. You're making a decision for yourself. And then now one of those options is leaving out of clarity. You go back to that question. What do I want my kids to learn from me? Not how do I stay for the kids, but what do I want my kids to learn from this relationship, from me? Do you want them to learn to suppress themselves? Do you want them to tolerate the intolerable, tolerate disconnection, distance, to stay small, keep the peace? Or do you want them to learn to respect themselves, to speak clearly, to stay grounded in those tough moments, to make decisions from strength and self-worth? They're watching every day. They're seeing this. Again, this is not to say one way or another. You stay for the kids or you go. It's about awareness. It's about clarity. It's about understanding what's really happening. Because I also have talked to folks that will say, oh, my relationship with my kids is actually so much better when I don't have this stress of this relationship always weighing me down. And there are many times kids will come back and say, my dad is so much happier, or my mom is so much happier. This is not gender specific to just men, but this podcast is The Secure Husband. So this is for men, but I have a lot of women that listen. So yes, I understand before you want to send me a comment that this goes both ways, but I'm talking to men right now. And it's hard. I get it. It is so painful. If you feel stuck because of the kids, sometimes that will turn to resentment towards the kids. And you really don't want to go there. But I get it. It is one of the hardest places to be when your marriage is struggling. Because it's easy if there's no kids to finally say, you know what? I think we're best going our own separate ways. We split our assets and then we're gone. But man, when the kids are involved, that's heartbreaking. Your identity as a father, your responsibility, protector. But what you're feeling may not be the full truth. I go back to the title of this podcast series, The Perception of Powerlessness. Perception. From people that have divorced with kids, and I hear a lot of therapists and counselors talk about this, it's not as much of the divorce itself, it's how the divorce is handled. So if the divorce gets nasty, the relationship gets nasty, that's where kids get scarred. But when two people can act as adults and protect their children from a very adult life change, they find ways to navigate it. My understanding is that children are a lot more resilient than we think if the parents can act as adults. And I've read many, many books and talked to many different professionals on divorce to understand that. But it's hard. It's hard because you feel powerless. So when you can start to see that situation with clarity, you can stop reacting from fear and start leading from strength. If you do the work, you overcome the self-abandonment, and it may be time to move forward in a way that aligns with who you want to be, that brings you peace. And just because kids are involved, you don't have to stay stuck in this if nothing ever changes. These guys that I hear that are just like 10, 20 years, they wait till the kids grow up. You don't have to stay stuck. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of blowback on this one because that when I talk about kids and divorce, and it triggers a lot of feedback here. So I hope this helped you out. Again, I'm trying to go this entire month showing you that feeling of powerlessness. As I said last time, it's just a feeling. It's not the reality. You have power. It just may mean exhibiting courage and walking right through that fear. I hope this podcast helped you out. Hit that subscribe button if you don't already. Share this episode with somebody if you think they might need to hear this. And give me a review if you're a regular listener. And I encourage you, if you need accountability, understanding that you're not powerless, visit securehusband.com, reach out to me. Set up that free 30-minute consultation, just a conversation to see if one-on-one coaching might be right for you. And check out the new courses that are coming up on the website at securehusband.com/resources. I'll see you on the next Secure Husband podcast. Thanks for listening.